In the magnificent country of Turkey, not far from the ancient city of Ephesus, stands a simple house known there as the Miriam Ana Evi, the house of Mother Mary. It was there that the mother of Jesus lived out the last years of her life, and it was there that she ended her earthly journey. Most of the Marian shrines we visit are places where it is said that Mary has appeared, or perhaps where miracles have taken place. This one is different. Here Mary actually walked and lived and breathed during her time on earth. When you go into this house, you feel an extraordinary sense of peace and love and motherhood. I went inside with a young Muslim girl suffering with cancer. She came from far away to make a pilgrimage to Mary's house, and she asked me to accompany her into the house and bless her inside the holy place. After receiving the blessing, she burst into tears and said, "Now I know I will be fine with your blessing and the blessing of Mother Mary." Over 1 million pilgrims a year visit this tiny place high up in the hills. About half are Christians, both Catholic and Orthodox, from all over the world, and about half are Muslims, who also have a tremendous love for Mother Mary. Some of the Christian visitors, especially the Americans, are surprised to see the large number of Muslims coming with such great devotion for Jesus' mother. They are surprised to see in Mary's bedroom verses from the Quran written about Mary. They don't realize that Islam, too, holds a very tender affection for Mary. For Muslims, Mary is not only the mother of Jesus, she is a great saint in her own right, regarded as the most perfect woman ever to have lived. Perhaps that's why Bishop Sheen, so long ago, believed that it would be Mother Mary who would bring us all together again, Christians and Muslims, because of the great devotion both of us have for her. And nowhere is this more keenly felt than in the home of Mary in Turkey, a Muslim country. That is why Pope Pius XII said that this shrine is unique in all the world as the place where Muslims and Christians of every tradition and nationality find a home in which to receive the solace and maternal care of Jesus' mother, and where the prophecy of Mary comes true: all generations shall call me blessed. Most of the Marian feasts we have today are of a much later origin, but the Assumption goes back to the beginning of the Church itself, goes back to that holy house near Ephesus where Mary was taken from this world to the next in the presence of the apostles. We remember that one of these was the very special friend of Jesus, the disciple he loved so much. This was the young man who rested his head on the breast of Jesus at the Last Supper. It was he who, alone among Jesus' male friends, was present at the foot of the cross, together with Mary and the other women who had the courage that the men did not. It was to that beloved disciple that Jesus addressed his words from the cross: "Behold your mother." We are told that from that time forward, he took Mary into his home, taking care of her for the rest of his life. John, the beloved disciple, eventually became the leader of the church in Ephesus, where his tomb is still preserved. When he went to Ephesus, he took Mary with him, and that is why it was there that she spent her final days. We can only imagine that day when Mary was leaving this earth. The apostles had come from far and wide to say goodbye. She was the mother of their Lord, the mother of the church, and so their mother as well. After Jesus' ascension, she surely had assumed a particularly important role as the closest person to Jesus, the ultimate connection to him. They must have been just as sad now as on that day when Jesus himself ascended. In the Eastern Church, that event has always been referred to as the Dormition, the falling asleep of Mary. In the West, we refer to it as the Assumption of Mary into heaven. We can be sure that every year on that day, the church around Ephesus must have come together to commemorate that event. So today's feast reaches back to the very beginnings of the church. Over the years, many disasters, both natural and man-made, struck Ephesus. Earthquakes, wars, and political unrest forced the population to abandon the city. The house of Mary, too, fell into oblivion, and the rest of the world forgot about it for centuries. It was not rediscovered until the 19th century. The researchers knew the house existed, and they were fairly certain that this was it. In making inquiries of the people living around there, they discovered in a village far away the last remnant of the population of the ancient city, the descendants of the first century Christians of Ephesus. They were living on a mountaintop where they had fled in the 11th century. But every year, even from that distant place, they still would return to Mary's house on that day, for they knew from their ancestors who had passed on the story from generation to generation that this is where it happened. They still were making the 10-hour pilgrimage on foot every year to this powerful place, forgotten by the rest of the world, as their ancestors had done for 19 centuries. There could no longer be any doubt. This was Mary's home. In 1950, Pope Pius XII solemnly proclaimed the truth of the Assumption of Mary into heaven. This was something people had known from the beginning of the church. They had been there, and the tradition had been passed down from generation to generation. Why did the Pope feel it needed to be highlighted just then? Pius XII was a wise man. There was a good reason why he chose to spotlight Mary in 1950, the very center of the 20th century. The first half of the century had been the bloodiest period of time since the beginning of the world. We had witnessed 2 terrible world wars. We had seen the Holocaust. We had seen the genocide of many other peoples as well. We had seen the beginning of the atomic age and the fear that brought. We had seen what men were doing to men. Pius XII took that opportunity to elevate the feminine, to lift up the mother, in a sincere attempt to usher in a totally different and new age of tenderness, compassion, and motherhood, a new feminine age with Mary as the model. Not surprisingly, most of the non-Catholic Christian world rejected what he had to say. But interestingly enough, the famous Swiss Protestant psychologist Carl Jung greeted the definition of the Assumption with great joy, calling it the greatest religious event since the Reformation. He explained that humanity had been suffering from a terrible imbalance in its psyche because of all the emphasis on male principles, male archetypes. And now the Pope was raising up womanhood. Carl Jung welcomed that. The Pope knew exactly what he was doing. It is machismo that has been the destruction of so much of our world. It is machismo that has led to the new age of fear and terror. Machismo that has stockpiled atomic weapons capable of destroying the planet several times over. Machismo that has led to the terrible wars of the last century and our own. It is machismo that places women in burqas in Afghanistan so that women don't have to be seen. Machismo that in the Jewish law dictates that a woman caught in adultery should be stoned to death, but not the man. Machismo that in our Western culture has placed women on some pedestal to be venerated but not taken seriously. And it is machismo which continues in so many Christian churches to keep women down. People filled with machismo are also filled with fear of the feminine. No wonder that Pius XII decided to usher in that new age of the woman. If you can, go to Mary's house. See the Christian candles burning there alongside the votive handkerchiefs hanging from the trees, bearing prayers written in the Turkish fashion. See the great faith of the pilgrims, Muslim and Christian. See the people who have been healed there and the people who return to give thanks. See the Muslim women praying for the birth of a child, who then named their child Mary, or Jesus. See the Christian people renewing their faith at the home of the Mother. See the holy font there, the spring of healing water used by people of every faith. Feel the peace, the tenderness of the Mother. But if we can't go there, let us build the house of Mary right where we are. Let us make of our world a house of peace, understanding, and motherly love. A house never again to be ravaged by war. A house where hate finds no place. A house where all see each other only as children of the same Mother. May our hearts and our world become a worthy home to every mother's child.